Thank you very much for joining us. This is our third meetup group as the migration company. Obviously, we've got a great lineup of guest speakers from Quest, Alfred, and Julian, our partner manager, who's come all the way down from Sydney to join us tonight. And we've got Lester from TPG, one of our other partners there. And obviously, a core partner, Amazon, and Sarath, who's a brilliant presenter. I really enjoyed your presentation at Dynatrace, mate, even though I had to nip out for a quick refreshment break, but I rushed back to make sure I got as much of it as I could. So thank you very much for joining us again. I really enjoy having you as a presenter with us, and Alfred. And the attendees, last and not least, it wouldn't be an event without you, so thank you very much for coming and taking some time out of your day and braving the weather. It's not the best out there, so thank you very much for joining us. So just a little bit about the migration company. We're quite a young organization. We've only been around for 7 months since the start of the year, but in that time we've really taken our niche and driven some great innovation and some really core, strong focus in the migration space to do things that we think are pretty amazing in this space. Things like 40% faster guaranteed migrations, and I'll share today all of the secrets on how we achieve that. So at the last event I shared one of them, but we're just going to go public with what we do and see where that takes us. But really we have 4 key capabilities at the migration company. Our cloud discovery capability, backed with a number of awesome products that gives us deep insights into your source environment and allows us to plan for your destination and your migration. We'll go a little bit deeper into this, so I don't want to spoil it all, but we then move on to our cloud migration, which is the core of our capability, how we move customers into AWS clouds and environments. We have our cloud management solutions and services and cloud security. So obviously what we'll do in our cloud discovery, one of the key capabilities that we have is being able to do process level discovery. Now this is very important because a lot of migrations will have complex applications sitting on top of all kinds of infrastructure and servers, and they'll be spread across an IT environment. They might be on-premise, hybrid, multi-tier scenarios. And how do you pick up all of those dependencies in a virtual bucket and move it so that your application doesn't break? So with our discovery process, we find those process level dependencies that allows us to map out in a visual form all of the servers and infrastructures and dependencies of that application, bundle them up and migrate them as one. We use obviously the rich mapping features of those tools to give us that view and to report back to customers on what's involved in pushing a migration through. We take all that information and help our customers build a cost-benefit analysis, micro-segmentation, so being able to look at a specific process, put that into a virtual container, and test that before committing to a migration, which is pretty awesome because we actually push the infrastructure through, push the application in a virtual container, test that in that environment, and then commit the change when we know it's working, which is pretty awesome. Network assessment, so with our partner TPG, we'll go in and do quite a detailed network assessment. This is part of our 40% faster guarantee, because most of the time when we do a network assessment, we find that a customer's network is saturated. Adding an additional migration load onto that environment or onto that network will obviously slow down existing applications, disrupt user experience, and basically just cost the business a lot more money and time when you try and push a migration workload through a saturated network. So with TPG, we can plug in high bandwidth pipe purely for the migration purpose, and they've got a pretty good turnaround time, and basically also then use that as the ongoing link to the cloud or the new private data center or whatever it might be. And they've got some crazy pricing around this offering, which is, I definitely encourage you to reach out and find out because it's very, 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 very attractive. Workload analysis. So I think you're going to go a little bit more into the various workloads that you can push into AWS Cloud. But that's obviously something we help customers look at. Business case development. A lot of companies will look at a cloud migration or maybe even a private data center migration at the point when they have infrastructure renewals or software and maintenance renewals. So helping businesses plan and looking at the cost benefit for moving to the cloud through our discovery process is very critical, helping customers build a business case and obviously a migration roadmap. Migration grouping is another key factor. That's again backed by our environment maps and our process level discovery. So from a cloud migration perspective, this is the second key to our 40% faster migration process. So we've taken what we think is the greed out of migrations out, and we pre-build our own migration environment. So we've got a pretty large footprint in AWS already, where we've built our migration servers, installed all our partner migration tools and discovery tools and all of these various capabilities, so that when a customer comes to us and says, can you do a migration for us, we switch on the relevant migration server, connect the source and destination via a fast purpose-made pipe, and away we go. So we're saving customers a lot of time. We don't have to go and build infrastructure and ask for service accounts and all these things that cost a lot of money and take a lot of time and distract the business from what they really need to do. So I think that's one of the key value adds that we bring to the process. Migration automation. So we have some great products that we work with for various different use cases, because migrations, a good example, we're working with a company, they build cloud software for self-managed superannuation funds, and their only competitor has a desktop legacy kind of application. So we're custom building a solution and a tool so that they can re-automate and repurpose these migrations and bring on new customers. So it's a small use case, but they get 600,000 people in the industry on a self-managed super fund. So making that repeatable and easy for them is something we do. So it's not just about these large cloud migrations. We're the migration company, so we look at different use cases and how we can help people move stuff from A to B. Master migration lists. So this is obviously very important. This is why we have data analysts and discovery tools and business analysts, because when you get into those very large migrations, you need a process around the technology, and this is a central concept that we adopt. It also helps with quality management and migration verification, having basically your source destination and your destination environment mapped out in a list with an owner. So let's say we're looking at a data migration, for example. You could have thousands of, hundreds and millions of files that you might have to migrate, and you have to be able to prove to that business that you've moved it over with the right metadata, with the right permissions, and that content's intact. So how do you manage that process? And this is a backbone of how we interact with the business through business analysts and data analysts and reports and discovery tools and all of that good stuff. So this is also very important. This is part of our 40% faster offering as well. We have an exclusive partnership with Equinix, which has 200 data centers globally. They basically are the internet. So we have a migration environment within their data centers, which puts us on the edge of the cloud or the edge of the internet, which basically puts us the closest to any cloud provider that anyone else can get to, right? So we're right on the edge. We've got peering links into AWS, and that allows us to migrate faster, of course. So specialist tools, I think we're going to look at some of our partner tools tonight. I'm very glad to be a partner with Quest. We're lucky enough to win the Silver Partner Award at their annual Partner Summit 2 weeks ago, so we're very chuffed with that. Thank you very much. One day when we do a Migration Company Award, you guys will get one too. So thank you for that. And then cloud management, we encourage businesses to manage their own environments. but we do understand that there's obviously a time for upskill or transition. So we provide a hypercare period once we've done a migration to solve any teething problems, stick around for a few days a week, make sure that there's a solid handover. We do have some management products in our portfolio, so monitoring tools help you, kind of look at alerts or, warning signs or issues or scaling or costing or whatever it might be that you need to look at. We can support that through ongoing monitoring as well. And we also help businesses gain the skills to support themselves. We want to encourage people to be able to, we don't want to take jobs away from people. We want to empower people to do cooler things with their time, and that's one of our visions. Cloud security. So we have a great partner in this space. They're called Alatar Group. The ex-CEO of Dimension Data started this business. They engage with us to help with very strategic security frameworks. They're experts in this space, and they help us lay the foundation for a successful migration from a security perspective. Where we come in is we partner with them from a monitoring perspective through their tool, and we also liaise with them from a first and second line support, but if it comes to something a little bit more serious, then we'll engage with them. So ultimately, we've got a great all-round story in the migration company. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that, and I guess why we're in the room with Amazon and companies like Quest Software, which have been around for many, many years. So hopefully, we can work with you guys in the future and bring some value to your cloud journey or even your private data center or whatever it might be. So without further ado,
So good evening, everyone. First thing I'd like to talk about is Quest. Who here has ever heard of Quest before? Yeah. Okay. Who here has heard of a product called Toad? Yes, that's a tool that we actually make, that we sell. It's very popular in the database space. Probably the first thing that we became well known for. But the first tool we ever actually made is a tool I'm going to talk to you a little bit about in a couple slides. Quest has been around since 1982, 87, sorry, I should know that. Because I've been with Quest for 19 years, which I never thought I'd say about any company, but that says something about Quest that I would actually choose to stick around for that long. But, so everybody knows that applications are the things that serve the business, right? An application is critical to make sure that your customers get what they need, your employees get what they need. It's what really pays the bills, let's be really honest here, and behind every good application is a database. So how many companies that you all talk to have databases? Everybody should be knowing. That's an obvious answer. Please don't waste our time. It's every one of them. And that's the real answer here, is that every single company's got a database that they need to maintain and need to understand uptime for. And so without making sure that it's always available, even in the case of migrating, let's say I've got old hardware that's being decommissioned, or I've got an old unsupported OS and I need to get it off there. Or for some reason I want to get off of, say, Oracle, for example, and onto SQL Server, or I don't know, Aurora, maybe one of those new nice databases that we want to get onto. How do we do that without downtime? Because downtime is the enemy of any business. So this is where the tool SharePlex comes in. SharePlex was the first tool that we wrote ourselves. It's actually the only tool that is completely born inside Quest. It's been around, as I said, for 20 years. It's enterprise quality. It's heterogeneous now, because for many years, SharePlex was the Oracle to Oracle only replication tool. It was the original. Who here has heard of Golden Gate? No? Wow, thank you. One person's heard of Golden Gate. Two, cheers, thank you, I appreciate it. SharePlex was the original one. They both work kind of the same, but SharePlex has been around for longer. The real thing about SharePlex is it is a complete solution. So anything you need, so SharePlex is a replication engine itself. SharePlex is the comparison and repair tool if you need it. SharePlex is a monitoring and alerting tool. SharePlex has got some of the best support around. So we actually had a customer have a problem we had a brand new binary written, coded, tested, and delivered within 2 hours to that customer to make sure that they didn't suffer any outages. And actually, there's a major bank up in Sydney who had a need to migrate old versions of SQL Server onto newer versions of SQL Server. So they had a whole bunch of their fleet running on SQL 2005, and they were paying Microsoft through the nose for extended support for this. We had support for replicating off of 2008. They really wanted to have that, so within 3 weeks, we had enhanced SharePlex so it could capture from 2005 and replicate onto newer versions of SQL or Oracle or whatever database. So the whole point of SharePlex is helping you move your data to wherever it needs to be for a variety of reasons. So I'm going to talk a bit about all the different possible use cases. Obviously, I'm going to be focusing a bit on migration. But as I said, SharePlex is the best enterprise solution because it's everything you possibly need for replication. So here are some of the, I hate this slide, sorry. It's just, it used to be a nice list of all the things we support, sources and targets and all that. But as you can see here, I wish this had no laser pointer either. So we started off with Oracle. We added SQL Server, added SAP, both ASE and HANA, and then we've just added things. So instead of being Oracle to Oracle, now the eventual goal of SharePlex is to be from any database to any database. And we're adding this kind of in incremental fashion. So depending on customer requests, number of people who want this one added, then we added that. So we added support for Postgres. Now we're adding support for Postgres capture in the next release. So if you need to move your workload off of Postgres into, say, Oracle in AWS, we'll be able to do that for you. Currently, we can support capture from SQL Server and Oracle and then posting to all these different targets. And notice, yeah, we do have the other cloud service, as evil as it is, listed because we support posting to that. But because we can capture workload off of that other one, we can help you move that onto AWS if you should want to do that. The whole purpose of SharePlex is to free your data. Move it to where you, as a business, need it to be, and we'll help you get it there. Okay? So as I mentioned, this was the original tool, just Oracle, and we supported to Oracle, RDS, SQL Server, Postgres, la, 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 whole heap of them. Okay, but we've enhanced it now, capture from SQL Server as well. Notice there's Azure listed in Kafka. Anybody here know what Kafka is? I see lots of shaking heads. Sorry? So Kafka is officially called a message broker, right? So you're right, it's a streaming kind of flow-through data thing. So while we support posting directly into Oracle itself and directly into SAP HANA and directly into these other database types, if you can post it into Kafka, then you can actually go from Kafka to anything else. So through Kafka, we can get your data into almost anything, because Kafka is an Apache supported tool, was born in the Apache incubator, and is quite a robust tool, enterprise level right there. So the whole point is, if you don't see your target listed, it's probably supported by Kafka, and therefore SharePlex can get it to you in real time. And the whole point of SharePlex, as I mentioned once or twice, and we'll mention again once or twice, no downtime. Because downtime is what? The enemy? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the laugh. Yeah, I'm usually a lot funnier than this, but the workday killed me today. So, okay, so here is, I hate this new, sorry. They recently redid a bunch of our graphics, and I just hate the way this looks. But the whole idea of SharePlex is to capture information from your source. And I started with Oracle 30 years ago. Not with Oracle, but with Oracle technology. So a lot of my terminology is just in old habit Oracle stuff. So we grab stuff out of the Oracle redo logs or the SQL Server transaction logs or whatever native logging tool there is. We grab that and capture all the changes, pull out only the changes, and put those into the capture queue, okay? So these queues, it just shows you kind of the basic flow of information across. Now from the capture queue, as you can see, it's a first in, first out, pop something in, pop it off, move it to the next one. We have the read process, which has always bugged me. Seems like this is just a laundry list of my complaints about the product, but the read process is really more of a dispatcher process. So if I want to split the stream here and say I want certain tables to go to Chad's data center and other tables to go to your data center, totally drawing a blank, sorry. Then I can have it split there. But let's say I want to get even more complicated. I want certain columns to go certain places and certain rows to go other places. So the whole point here is that you have complete control over what data goes where, down to the table, row, or column level. Then at that point, it goes into an export queue, and there it's one-to-one, export to import. And then the post queue is where we reconstruct SQL statements down into remote targets or cloud targets, okay? So the whole idea of this is it's just a simple flow, and the idea is we kept it simple to keep it fast, efficient, and the least amount of extra work for any servers to do. Okay, any questions about this process? No? Okay, cool. So the thing is, we don't lose it out of this queue until we've confirmed it's delivered into that queue. So if there's a break here, then this queue just grows. And when we do the initial installation, we talk about how much outage resiliency you want. So let's say I want this flow to go, and I've got 10 gigabytes of redo every day. And I want this thing to be set for 2 weeks. So if I lose a connection here and snip my network cable for 2 weeks before I get it restored, we have a simple formula where we take about 1/3 of the redo log size times number of redo log switches per hour times number of hours in a day, We work it out to say how much disk space we need here, size that appropriately. And then you don't have to worry about it. We'll just stack up all the changes and keep them there. And then when things get restored, SharePlex automatically picks up where it left off, and all the changes flow through. In SharePlex terms, we move the bulk of the data before SharePlex is even turned on. We call that instantiation. So in Oracle terms, we'd say a hot backup, and then do a restore from RMAN or something. So then, say I've got a 10 terabyte database, all that's moved before I even start replication, because then all that work is done. If you want, you can do it through replication, but there's just going to be a lot of catch-up period where SharePlex is just moving things across and catching up. So the redo logs, as anybody who's with Oracle might know, are kind of the current transactions that are happening, or more recently, before the log switch has happened and it becomes an archive log. All right. So if we need to catch up from a really long time, a really big outage, then SharePlex can access the old logs if it needs to, and just catch things up. All right. So the whole point of this is once you set it up and you size the bits correctly, which we actually will help you do, there's really no need to worry about it. So the question is, how do we map a source to a target schema when it comes to heterogeneous examples? Yep. Cheers. So currently there is no, like I said, there is no automated process, but we've done this heaps of times, and our consultants are pretty well familiar with what works best. And so what we'll do is we'll usually suggest to you, we've seen that in 9 times out of 10, this is the situation that best fits this migration or this movement, and this is what we'd recommend. If the customer is really dead set on something else, then we can certainly do that until there's an issue. But once again, this is what we do. This is moving this product. We do it a lot. So I would say generally our recommendations are made with real world experience behind them. So the data will be inserted unless there's some constraint violation or some problem inserting that data, right? So if that problem happens, then that data won't be put into the redo log. So whatever the problem is, primary key violation, unique key violation, whatever it is, if the data is not inserted, then we don't grab it for change, okay? Happy to chat to you afterwards about this, because generally speaking, I have never heard of this being a problem for any of our customers. If there's a problem here, then the data doesn't get put into the database, okay? If the data gets put into the database, I would argue, what problem is there, okay? So once again, let's chat afterwards. Yeah, cool, cheers. All right. So this is a special slide for Amazon scenarios. And the most common one we're talking to people about right now is Oracle on-premise to Amazon. And we support RDS or EC2, depending on your preference. But who here is familiar with Oracle's business practices and customer relationship skills? I see a couple of smiles, because normally that gets, anybody who's had experience with them knows it's painful at best. And they're not really doing too well in the keeping customers happy stakes these days. So I am talking to, like, this is what I do all day, every day, is talk to customers about their database issues. No one is happy with the way Oracle's treating them now. So everybody is looking to get off of Oracle onto other things. So Oracle onto RDS is a common request, but Oracle onto non-Oracle RDS is a more common request. And because SharePlex can help you move off of Oracle, say, to SAP ASE, SAP HANA, SQL Server is probably the most common request we get, but even now, Postgres too. I'm happy to share the slide deck afterwards if you want, so just send me an email. Or if people really want to take pictures, let me stand in front of it. Yeah. So anyway, the idea though is who here is familiar with internet memes? I'm a loser, right? Because I love all that stuff. Who here knows the honey badger? Yeah, Julian knows. Honey badger don't care. SharePlex don't care, right? With the constraint of we don't support everything from and to just yet, but we're getting there. We don't care where you want to move your data to. We're there to help you get your data to where you need it to be, right? So right now, everybody needs it to be in AWS or Azure or wherever it needs to be. on Oracle, off of Oracle, and SharePlex can help you with that. So the idea here is everybody knows the difference between RDS and EC2, right? No? Okay. So with RDS, you can talk to the database. It's hosted in Amazon in the cloud. You cannot talk to the OS, right? You can only talk to the database on a database layer connection. So we can get data into that database, but if you want to put it into EC2, you can actually talk to the underlying operating system and install stuff onto the OS onto that machine, right? So the big difference there is, do you want to see the OS and install extra stuff or tinker with settings or whatever at the OS level? Then you want EC2. If you just want your database and Amazon deal with it for me, just manage it, which is why it's probably the most popular one that I talk to customers about. Doesn't matter, you can just get it up into that and we can put it there. The other interesting thing is, so let's say someone moves it to EC2 and then they realize, wait, that's a lot of stuff I would need to manage now because I don't have to manage that OS if I don't want to. They realize, uh-oh, I really need to move that off of EC2 into RDS. SharePlex can do that. And then once again, I'm just going to skip to the bottom here. SharePlex can help you move between availability zones. All right. Now I hear some people thinking, well, Amazon has its own migration tool. Why do I care about SharePlex? The reason is SharePlex means you don't have downtime. I usually get more bites on this, or at least lead into the joke a bit better. So once again, I fail at the jokes. But the whole point here is, we can help get you off of one availability zone into another for whatever reason. If it's performance or availability, or just want it over there because you like region 2 better than region 1, it's twice as good, right? You can do that. And the whole idea is, because SharePlex can also capture, we can capture out of RDS and move it to on-prem, or we can move it from EC2 into RDS, et cetera. So you see, these are a whole heap of different scenarios. All right? Any questions about any of these scenarios? No, I was sorry. That's supposed to be the Amazon regions? Yep. Yep. I don't have the slide in this deck, but we actually have SharePlex replicating for one customer from Singapore to Chicago. And that replication is done in less than 10 seconds. All right. Obviously, on a transfer that far apart, we're kind of at the mercy of the internet and the pipes and all that sort of thing. So there's caveats here, which is to say, along the line with your questions, what if you lose the network? What if you lose this? SharePlex stores up all the changes and it will just flow through at the pace that the network can handle. But as I said, we've got so many different customers using SharePlex, relying on SharePlex for mission critical replications. It hasn't been a problem for many. It's software, and in a little bit I'll show you where we install it. So most of the time, the most common thing is we install SharePlex for the capture bit on the source server, just because it's easy. Some people are like, I don't want that on my database server, so SharePlex can be installed on a machine next to that machine and do what we call a remote capture. So wherever the SharePlex is, we can just grab it off of that. As long as SharePlex can see the redo logs or transaction logs or whatever logs that database has, we can grab the changes out and flow it on through, okay? The whole point is, if you need access to the OS layers and the other bits, EC2 is your choice. But you know, it doesn't matter, because SharePlex can, as I said, Honey Badger, SharePlex doesn't care. It can help you move it off. Okay, so these are some of the use cases. We've been talking mostly about the migrations, but I just wanted to mention that SharePlex has been around for many years in a variety of different ways. So here, as you can see, it started off as an HA tool. I've got my disaster recovery database offsite, and SharePlex is replicating everything to that. So if I have an outage or my building blows up or whatever, I just say, everybody point to backup server and pick up business where we left off, because there's no need for any catch up or anything. It's all the data is already moved across. And as we talked about, and most of the things we're talking about today, the migrations, for whatever reason, if you need to move geographically, move between versions, move between database types, SharePlex can do that. And notice the little dotted line underneath. If there's a problem, or you've already moved all your data across and you realize, oh no, we need to move it back to the original setup, SharePlex can be set up to reverse replicate. So we can move everything back into the original setup. The first thing to notice, though, is let's say I'm replicating from A to B, and we haven't cut over yet. We haven't cut over. Everything's still on database A while the application is still live. All we have to do to fail back is to simply not point to the new database. It's very simple. We haven't actually moved anything. We're not committing anything. The data is already across, ready and waiting for us to commit. So most of the time, people will do their testing, change their indexing, do their performance testing, whatever it is they need to do on that new setup to make sure it's ready for the application. And then if it's okay, great. Cutover is on a matter of minutes instead of picking everything up and moving it across. Then that can be done if we want to change hardware. Let's say I want to upgrade my versions. Let's say I want to do a patch release. I don't have to worry about actually changing anything and committing to that because I always have that rollback, failback scenario, right? The last availability scenario is active-active load balancing, right? Because SharePlex can be both source and target at the same time. I capture changes and replicate them to 2 other places, and then I've got a de facto rack is what I call it. Scalability, probably the most common use case for SharePlex is for populating the reporting server. So right now for archiving or operational reporting, you can have live up-to-date information in your reporting because every boss I've ever known wants more up-to-date information. These reports are stale, no, not good enough. Well, SharePlex can get it to you in real time. As I said, SharePlex can handle multiple targets, so if we need to distribute data, depending on, say, I want some products to go to that reporting database, I want other dates to go to this reporting database, whatever it is I want to slice and dice for, SharePlex can have that replication going once again in real time. And the last scalability scenario is fairly uncommon, but I have seen customers do it, is that cascading one, where we replicate from A to B, and then B to C, and then C to D, but also from B to E, all right? So the idea is, however you want the data to move, SharePlex can move it that way. And the last set of use cases is about integration. As I said, SharePlex was Oracle for many years just by itself, but our customer requests, like, I love SharePlex, it's fantastic, I really want to use it on SQL Server, and we thought, that's crazy, it's an Oracle tool. Really? Does it have to be? Well, why don't we add it? So we spent about 3 years re-architecting SharePlex to get it ready, and then we just started adding target types. And now we have, as you saw on that other slide, I think it's up to 12, 13 different target types now, and now we're working on captures, and those are growing rapidly. So data integration. We also have a change history, so if you need to have CDC replacement or any sort of change tracking documentation for audit purposes, SharePlex can handle that for you. And then finally, if you need to consolidate your reporting from multiple sources into one master reporting database, we can do that for you. Okay? We are working on as a service, as a concept, but Quest, to be perfectly honest, is a little bit late to that game. I'll freely admit that because we don't have a lot of as a service offerings. That is changing a great deal now, though. I know our database products. I don't know our Windows products. Chad, perhaps you could comment on that. We do have some AD migration tools as a service and a whole heap of other ones as a service, but we are adding this as we go. Most of the time, this suits many of our customers' needs as it is, but the number of requests we have, we want it as a service, we want it as a service, it's just crazy. So if we don't listen, we're going to die, or at least the SharePlex product will die. So what are we doing? We're listening. So we're entering in that game slowly because, as you mentioned quite rightly, there's heaps of stuff we have to consider. Yeah. So any other questions about these? And normally, I don't go into all these. I have another 60 slides. Relax, not going to do them. About every one of these different scenarios. Usually I ask people, what do you want to talk about? We bounce forward to that. But I will bounce forward to skip that. Oh, this is interesting. Did anybody here know who EMO is? Australian Energy Market Operators. They're responsible for energy trading prices in Australia, okay? So technical details, they've got some pretty big databases. Well, not big, but huge. Recovery time objective, less than 15 minutes. Recovery point objective, less than 1 minute. They bought it in 2000, and they started off just here. And I was in Australia for 15 years before I knew which was this. One of these sites is Brisbane. One of these sites is Sydney. And nobody from Sydney gets to say which is which, but can anybody guess which side is which? Anybody know state of origin? The Blues, Sydney, Maroons, Queensland. And like I did this presentation, I don't know how many times, and then someone mentioned that to me from the audience, shouted out from the back, Queensland Maroons, you idiot. Oh, God. I felt silly because I've been a Melbourne boy for the past 20 years. So simple replication. So OLTP database down to a reporting database. Okay? But then they have the disaster recovery site. Oh, sorry, on the other side. As you can see, so it's got replication. Notice the arrows. Some of these are unidirectional, some of these are bidirectional. So both OLTP databases, the MAN and NOR, are replicating down to the, so those are the OLTP replicating down to the reporting databases. So as you can see here, well, if the databases are kept up to date with each other and the activity is replicated between them, how does Shareplex not double enter stuff? The answer is Shareplex is smart enough to know to ignore its own activity. So as you can see here, all this is replicated across. And as you can see, we're even replicating between the reporting databases, this is kind of silly, but this was the emo guys themselves who tried to figure out, what can we do with this? And they experimented, and they eventually got it to this. Okay? A little bit overkill, right? But the penalties that happen to emo if they don't keep the energy prices updated, I think they have a 5-minute window. If they do not update the prices every 5 minutes, the penalties are in the millions, both to the New South Wales government and the Queensland government and actually the Australian government as well. So because of that, they like redundancy. They like being safe. So this is what they ended up setting up with Shareplex and got it all going. So if I insert a row into any of the primary databases, how long do you think it is before it's replicated all the way? Any guesses? No, good, thank you, but no. 30 seconds. 30 seconds and it's replicated everywhere. Because please do remember that this distance is 1,000 kilometers. Okay? So every one of these that goes across, that's 1,000 Ks that it's handling that traffic. But the whole idea here is because of Shareplex, they've had 100% uptime. Anybody hear about the 5 nines? 99.999? Why is that the case? Because you can't get 100%. But because of Shareplex, they were able to get 100%. So it's tough because that means it's perfect. Not one thing wrong. But anyway. So here, talked a bit about the migrations. We talked a bit about that. And this is where Migration Company and Shareplex are going to work together to make you very happy people. This is the one I wanted. Okay. So these are 2 semiconductor manufacturers. Anybody know TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, and SMC, which I've forgotten where they are. But anyway, the whole point is, first there was a migration from True 64 to Itanium. And notice here they also changed Oracle 817 to 9.2. Then they moved from Itanium, because it's an awful platform, onto AIX. Notice there they kept the Oracle the same version. And then finally here, they kept the operating system the same version, but they upgraded Oracle. Now notice semiconductors and computer chips are used in how many different devices? They're everywhere, right? So these manufacturing plants are running 24/7. They are constantly humming. So they can measure the cost of their downtime at $150,000 an hour, all right? So because of this, Shareplex moved the traditional migration time, downtime, from 63 hours down to 3 hours, all right? And most of that time was for the humans to think about what they wanted, right? And seriously, it's unbelievable. When you think about the cost of this downtime, it's crazy. Okay, as I said, I can go on and on and on, but I see some flagging eyes, so I'm just going to stop it there. We've got some videos. What isn't on YouTube, honestly? There's a whole heap of Shareplex and Quest on YouTube. And data sheets and all sorts of exciting stuff. Okay? Cheers. Thank you very much. Cheers.